What's up, Internet? You're tuning in episode 169 of Nintendo Noise, Slipscreen Games' weekly Nintendo podcast. I'm your host, Peter Bessie, joined today by my very good friends and co-hosts, Mr. Stephen Radford.
Hello, hello.
And Mr. Max Wright.
Bing Bing Wahoo. Bing Bing Wahoo.
There you go.
Sorry, yeah.
Take a couple weeks off and the guy forgets all the rules.
Yeah, sorry about that.
I get it. It's an exciting day today because, of course, after 169 episodes of this show, the Nintendo Switch 2 era is about to begin. We got the official reveal today. It's our first real, actual look at the device. We have some concrete things to discuss about it, and I'm excited to jump into it with you guys today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to know how many episodes of loot pots and like this is basically, if people don't know, our friendship was surrounded by the Switch, so it kind of feels like we've closed a chapter.
It's the end of an era,
and we're moving into another one.
Yeah,
and it's really exciting to finally, after 8 years, which is insane, be talking about another Nintendo console.
I think this represents roughly 300 episodes between that show and this show.
300 weeks.
The through line. Yeah, 300 weeks of waiting.
Talk about
How long is 300 weeks filming out? That's this full 6 years, right?
Yeah, that's 6 whole years.
Like, if we've been talking about what's next for the Switch the entire time the Switch has been alive, is that what I'm hearing?
No, I mean,
we spent a long time talking about what was in that sequel to Breath of the Wild trailer that we nitpicked on that.
I was gonna say when we first started, it was like the golden age of the Switch. So yeah, we weren't talking about it was like, oh, we're in it. This is it, baby. Like, it can't get any better than this. But here we are, man. We got our first reveal, and funny enough, the three of us were chatting last night, like off mic, just like about, do we think the reveal will actually happen tomorrow? And if it does happen, what does it look like? And I mean, part of me wishes we had recorded it, because I feel like we basically predicted it beat for beat, right? Like what it would look like, because it was one of those kind of standard like hype trailer, sizzle reel things, right? Where we got some concrete information, right? Like, it's releasing in 2025. We got to look at the name is confirmed as Switch 2. We got to look at the logo. We got to look at the actual, design of the unit and some of the, rumored changes confirmed to be there, right? But a lot of question marks left as well.
However, I will say that the fact that we, basically every single leak of the design and the models and all that sort of stuff that we saw was correct, which leads me to believe that everything we've heard related to the various features is probably bang on the money, seeing as this thing is... We use the phrase the worst kept secret in video games a lot, but I feel like for a console, I don't think a console was leaked this badly since the PS4 Pro was in someone's hands before they even announced the thing.
Well, you think about how long they've seemingly been sitting on it, right? Because I mean, if the rumors that we've heard are true, it's like it could have launched as early as like late last year,
and it was delayed. Yeah,
so that they could have more units ready for launch, have more games in the pipeline for release, to really try to bridge the gap between those two consoles, and also, as we've speculated, I think, like, make as much money as you can on the Switch while the getting's good, before you have to move on to the next thing. And try to maybe cement yourself as that best-selling console of all time if you can eke out that, that little kind of, like, what a way to cap off a generation of a console, right? Like, one of the most successful of all time already. Why not take the crown if you can? So before we get into like the nitty-gritty of all the details of what we saw, I did just kind of want to throw it out to you guys about, like, what were our initial reactions? Like, what did you think of the trailer? And we got some questions and comments from some of the readers as well, or the listeners as well, excuse me. Max, why don't we start with you? Initial reactions to the reveal. Did you think it was a good trailer? Did you like what you saw?
I think it's a shame that it all leaked the way it did, because there was nothing in that trailer that was surprising in any way. The stuff that I was like, okay, yeah, that's well done, which we can get into a little bit later when we actually talk about the thing. I think, the only thing that was really like, oh, cool, is the Mario Kart thing. But I think it was very well put together. I think it was quite stylish. I think I think it was too CG for me as a like, it showed the evolution and blah 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 blah, but I think it was too like
Rendered.
it looks like a like a 3D model as opposed to here's a physical device. Like you get those concept videos where it's like this is the Xbox 720 and it's like a glass see-through globe or something,
Sure.
Everything's a 3D render though. Like, there's never anything that's not. It's even in all these videos it has been. Apart from I guess the Switch reveal, which was slightly different, where they wanted to show their new market audience. I think everyone knows what the Switch is. This was like a really good way of showing that. I think it was like, well, you know what the Switch is. It was front and center. It was there, and then it kind of carved out and showed the new kind of evolution of the Switch. Is not changing the game again. It's the Switch you know and love, but we've tweaked it. It's got to be slightly bigger,
physically bigger. Yeah, that's a great way of doing it. Is showing it actually go and grow.
Yeah,
is like that's like there's no question of like, oh, what size is it? Blah blah blah.
Or like the marketing problem that we've discussed, right? Of like there was like that point with the Wii to the Wii U where there were a significant number of people who were like, is this an add-on to the Wii? Like, do I buy this tablet as an accessory, right? Not, is this the next console that follows the Wii? And I think obviously we talked a lot about the idea that like they should absolutely call it Nintendo Switch 2. It would be an unprecedented thing, but it would be a mistake to move away from that branding, to leave there to be any room for confusion about like that this is the next one. This, in the same way that you're trained with PlayStation to PlayStation 2 or iPhone to iPhone 13, whatever the hell we're on now, 16. That works. People get it. And it immediately communicates the idea of, I've really enjoyed this device for the last 7, 8, 5, 3 years I've had it. There's this new one. There's going to be new games that I want to play. I'm going to want to jump on. Like, I think that they addressed a lot of really key marketing concerns by just making it as simple as possible. And I agree with you, Steve, about like, I thought it was a smart choice to show the original Switch and then just show like, here, one-to-one, here are the things that are different, right? To start that conversation.
I think it was a good enough tease to get you to go, oh, well, why is there another USB port on the top? Like, what advantage is that going to give me? And get you thinking about these questions. Like, what is that unlabeled button, which we've seen labeled C in the leak?
That's weird.
And I think
hold on. We're going to get to the buttons. I got a whole run of show, and I know you can see it. Well, let's just jump around here, all right? I'm gonna get into
in terms of the video. Then I think it was exactly what we thought it was going to be. We heard it was going to be a leak about just the hardware and games were going to come later, which was similar to what we had with the Switch. I think a lot of people forget that there was that initial trailer showing it in use on the rooftop and in the plane, and then we got the showcase with all of the games. They're doing a similar thing here. To me, it was interesting that it was so far out. I think probably they played their hand a little bit early based on some of the leaks.
I want to get a question in here. So Alopius wrote in and said, do you think it's odd that Nintendo dropped such a short video so far in advance of the Direct? Some are speculating that Nintendo was pressured from leaks or to allow third parties to begin their announcements. I think the former is probably the bigger part of it, but I do think that the third party bit of it is actually a really good shout, Alopius. Like, I think a lot of people are assuming that it is like they want to get out in front of these leaks, and there have been a ton of leaks, and most of them have proven true. So I do understand that. And we know that third parties have known about this thing and have been working on stuff for a long time. So I wouldn't be surprised if there is maybe like a game that's going to be multi-platform and they want to announce that it's coming to Nintendo Switch 2 in their reveal trailer and things like that. And Nintendo is at the point where they're like, okay, we need to start laying the tracks because the information's getting out other places, right? So if some of those leaks that, we talked about offline last night of like, is Red Dead Redemption 2 potentially a launch title on Nintendo Switch 2, right? Like if there are games like that lined up, yeah, like they're going to want to market them at some point, and like you need to like start laying down runway for the plane to take off,
I think we're going to see the first one next week. It's the Xbox Developer Direct. They've committed to bringing games to Nintendo's new console. At least Call of Duty's
Call of
coming.
Duty could get revealed for Nintendo Switch 2 there. That could be interesting.
But I think they're gonna show some other games. So there's a secret game there, and I think that's probably going to be coming to Switch 2. The rumor is that there's that Oblivion remake. I could see that being a perfect candidate.
I could see
for
them
Switch
doing
2.
something like Sea of Thieves too, though. You know, like one of the other
Yeah.
games that like they brought to PlayStation and it was a big deal, and it could be like, hey, like day and date on Nintendo Switch 2, there'll be new servers for Sea of Thieves. Like that just makes sense, right? Something like that, anyway. Max, you're muted.
So sorry. Hi-Fi Rush was slated for the Switch 2, or the Switch and never showed up. But I wonder if anything's changed because the developer's been sort of sold and
Yeah, they
rebought
don't
and
own that
reopened.
now.
So
It's
yeah,
like Clapton,
that's
right,
a
or something.
strange situation there, really, isn't it? Do they own the IP? Do they have the rights to move it onto the Switch 2? Is that just gone? Interesting.
I did want to bring another comment in here. This one came from Kinsman X Redeemer, who had some similar reactions to some of your criticisms, Max. Which they said this was a very un-Nintendo yet Nintendo way of revealing Switch 2. Very awkward and underwhelming. I would say I feel this way primarily due to all the leaked information. When it dropped, I missed it, but I wasn't troubled about it at all. It was such a cheaply rendered reveal. Given all the leaked information, I learned nothing new. It felt wrong. The whole thing did. And I think that, you know, like we said, I think there's probably something to the idea that, you know, they felt like they needed to get out in front of the leaks. But I think this is also somewhat, you know, not to, you know, say like you feeling that way is wrong, Kinsman, but I think this is sometimes the stuff that happens when you're us and not a normal person. Because all of my friends that are one step removed from video games, like that play video games but are not as dialed in as we are, we're all reacting to it like it was new information because they're not keeping up with leaks and design.
Yeah, no, I've had loads of people say that. Like, I posted it on my story, and they were just like, "Is this official? Like, there's a new Switch coming? Like, there's a new Mario Kart?" And I was like, "Yeah, there's a video here." And like, originally the title of the video was like a message from Nintendo or something, and then they changed it afterwards. So it was like, I think they'd had it in the back end of YouTube ready to go. But from the leaks based on YouTube backend before, they probably didn't want to say what it was, so that people could see that there was probably something in there. And I would imagine that's probably where some of the announcement stuff came from. One other little tidbit about the trailer I did like, the length of it was 2 minutes and 22 seconds, which I thought was quite cute that they did 222 for the length of the video.
Because it's a Switch 2. I was like,
it's the Switch 2, yeah.
What's the significance?
There was some really cool little Easter eggs in there. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah, I did like that as well. So let's get into what we saw, because like you said, it's not a very long trailer, but I think if you're a freak like us, there's quite a bit that you can kind of like pull from here and chat about. So let's just take it like bit by bit from what we got here. So I think the first thing, right, is they show the original Switch. We show the screen stretches out, and we get an idea of the bigger footprint. It looks to me like a pretty good compromise in terms of like increasing the size of the screen without making the footprint a ton bigger. Like, it doesn't look like it's an unwieldy size, but you're getting a decent amount more screen real estate, which is nice.
Yeah, but it was interesting they went with the original Switch rather than the Switch OLED, which already had a slightly larger screen anyway. So
it's
the
a little
difference,
bit like
it makes the bevel. It's like, whoa, like, it looks even bigger,
even better when they went and did that change. I did notice that, but I think it makes it around the same size as the Steam Deck. From what I could tell, it looks like it's around about an 8-inch screen, but it's 16:9 rather than the 16:10 aspect ratio.
8 inches is what I'd seen online before. Steve, I can see your face. I can see you're
gonna move right past that.
Yes, 8 inches is what I saw online, and that is the perfect size, I think. And I've seen some people complaining online about the size of the bezels, but I think the bezels are noticeably smaller than the original Switch, but they're around the same as the Switch OLED. So I don't really know what the complaint is, considering it's a bigger screen. You know, it's not like it's the same size screen and the bezels are shrunk. It's a bigger screen. The bezels are still smaller. I think it looks good. The screen. I just am gonna miss OLED. There's no
Yeah,
way around it.
There's no confirmation that it's not there, though,
Yeah,
right? That was one
True.
thing that
We'll
we
see.
didn't see.
I think it probably is not, but I hope it is. I would love it if there were 2 SKUs and you could pay a little bit more for an OLED screen. I would be very pleased with that, but we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I think that just comes down to the fact that some people just want to complain about things in the same way that I saw people complaining that like the name Switch 2 is not a good idea, and it's like, you're wrong. You're definitively incorrect to suggest that.
Yeah, the where's the Super Switch? It should be called the Super Switch. Like, yeah, that's not confusing in the slightest.
Yeah, like that's confusing. That's why they didn't do it. It's like if you think that's a bad idea, there's a little company called PlayStation that I would love to connect you with because it's worked out pretty well for them. Also, again, Apple. But anyway,
The bezels need to be like bigger on the side as well because of the new like magnetic connection. So like you could see that there was like that new cutout, and they kind of slot in a lot further than they did with the old Switch, with the original Switch, where they ended up getting flimsy over time. Like mine, I touch it and they're like moving now on my launch day Switch.
Do you know what that is? There's a little plastic clip in there. The clip that they used to hold it in is made of plastic. If you put the little wrist holder on the wrong way, that shears off the corner of that plastic. So where it goes in, it normally goes in, it'll go clip, and it holds it in place. Instead, what it does is it makes it rattly, and then it just wobbles. And if you drop the Switch on anything, or it will shear off. If you put the Switch in too hard or take the Joy-Con off too hard, if you look at all your Joy-Cons, you'll see they're a little bit sheared off, and that's what breaks. So this new system shouldn't have that problem, hopefully.
yeah, because like I mean, this was another one of those things that like had been rumored, and like Bloomberg reported on it with like the pin connectors, and like it looks like they slot in, and then you have a button that you press to release them, like the standard Joy-Cons. So yeah, I mean, it seems like it should be a lot more stable because it's like because of like where the pin goes in, it's like in the center too. So it like I could see, like you said, Max, like if you dropped it or something like that, and the other one, it's like you could bend that track. Whereas now it's like it seems like it would be way more likely that you would damage the pin connector, though, which is like that's actually on the device. So
it's more recessed, though. I think the fact, so you know, like there's a little step on it. It's like a little wedge on it on the new Joy-Con where the color is, which seems quite far out. And I think that's so that when it's in, and you've got, if it's magnets or not or whatever it is, when it's all depressed and connected in, there's enough there that it can't move because that takes the brunt of the damage, I think is what it is. And
they're inset too, right? Like the little pin that comes out is like inside.
Yeah, so that's inside,
so
and the things are fat enough that when it's in, it's such a deep connection that I think it's not going to wobble. It's not going to come out. You really need to pull those things so they're not going to come out accidentally. I also think that people saying, "Oh, this is flimsy," somehow seem to think that they know better than Nintendo in terms of, oh, if you just did this, I fixed your design for you, like they haven't spent.
People need to stop saying shit like that until you have it in your hands, right? Like
you
don't know. What you're doing right now is speculating, and that's fine. We're doing it too, but it bothers me when people speculate and act like as if it's this obvious, like, oh, all you needed to do is this, and it's just like, gang, that's not how this works. Like, why don't you get it in your hand, and we'll figure out how the design actually came together.
I can't see why that would be flimsy. Like, it looks more sturdy than a USB-C peg.
Sure,
and
that's standard.
And that's never broken. Like, it's like I've never had a problem with that.
Let me pull in a question here. This one comes from LD-Link16 on the Discord, who wrote in and said, do you think the quality of the Joy-Cons will be better on Switch 2? Not just the sticks drifting, but things like button presses being more reliable. I felt like they were really focusing quite heavily on the Joy-Cons themselves in the trailer, so that is my big hope. I did kind of get that impression as well, that like there was a good amount of time spent on the updates to the Joy-Con, and when you think about what if there was any negative about the Nintendo Switch, if there was any black eye on that console's legacy, it's the Joy-Cons, right? And them being, the drift, and them being kind of, not the greatest build quality. So the idea that, they would really want to refine that design and work out those kinks and have it so it's not a big problem they need to, have a lawsuit over this generation, I'm sure is part of the plan here.
I don't know that they're going to be any different in terms of of build quality. I think it looks like it's made probably from the same material. I think the big change is going to be the sticks. I think we probably will see them move to something like Hall Effect sticks. We've seen some of their patents. The sticks look quite different in terms of the footprint on this and how they move. It doesn't look like it's the tiny little peg on the ball anymore. It looks like it's, maybe a slightly larger surface. I can't say though that I've had the problem where my buttons have been unreliable. I've never had that issue. The main issue I ever had was just with stick drift, and with apparently me shearing off the plastic peg so that they wobble when they go into the Switch. But I think
have
the
had
reason
sticky buttons on the back. I have had one of my shoulder buttons get sticky.
Okay. I mean, I think the reason they focused mostly on the Joy-Cons is because that's what's new. Like the screen itself doesn't seem that new, right? We saw the new kickstand, but great. It's a plastic kickstand, similar format to the one that's on the OLED, but everything else, everything new is in those Joy-Cons. Like there's a lot going on there.
So real quick, before we talk about some more of the tech in the Joy-Cons, I want to just talk about the color scheme real quick. I think it's pretty interesting, like the way that they switched it up, like really leaning into that like sleek black design and having the blue and red that like became such a iconic part of the Switch's design. It was in a lot of the branding and everything like that, right? Like just moving those into be like highlights under the stick, I think is actually a really cool feature, or approach to that like style of design. Cause like I have famously said I don't like the 2-color Joy-Con thing. Like I've always thought it like I get the idea of it of like, oh, it's so that it's like player 1 and player 2 and like they're supposed to be 2 controllers, but like I think on the actual unit, I just never liked the way it looked.
I think it looks so cool.
I've never been a fan. And like I bought an identical pair of blue on day one, and that was my main set. I switched to white with the OLED. I had the purple ones that Doc gave me. All of those got drift eventually, and now they're all just, on display. But point being, that was something that like I always preferred the single color. So I think this is kind of like, for me, a fun like in between of like you can do the offset color thing, but it doesn't feel like so like garish and like make it look as much like a kid's toy or something. It's like
it's more grown up, isn't it? When I look at the original Switch now, the original blue and red, the one that they showed off at the start of the trailer, I do think that that sort of like grayish when it's turned off LCD screen, that sort of the fat bezels, the blue and red Joy-Cons, it looks like a kid's toy. It looks back when it first came out, it was
they
like,
did
wow,
have
how
the
slick.
2 SKUs. They had the one with the grey Joy-Cons, which they phased out. But that was
but I think the red and blue specifically has like that. It looks more childish, and then the Switch OLED, they went for a more adult, like the white. It differentiated itself, the white dot. Whereas this seems to be then, meeting in the middle somewhere, like you said, Pete, of like it looks more grown up, it looks more adult, it looks more like the other sort of handhelds we see now, but it's still got that Nintendo flair just hidden underneath the surface.
Do you think that's because like the Switch Lite has become the kids model, and this now can be the one that adults get? They
Very
get
possibly,
the
yeah.
Switch
Maybe,
2,
but
and
I think it's also probably just a visual differentiation, like that like the blue and red are so iconic that you want to keep it, but you don't want to just have it look identical. So this is an easy way that you can kind of like, you look at this thing and there's no question that it's a Nintendo Switch, but it also doesn't look like the one you already have.
yeah,
It could also be down as a way of like, so you see, if you look at the inside of the Switch main body, the red side has red inside it and it has a plus at the top, and then the other side has blue on the inside it with a minus on top. And that's, so you look at that and you go, that one definitely plugs in there, because there's probably been situations where people have slid it on wrong or slid it on differently.
I definitely remember that happening in the early days of Switch, of people putting them on backwards and being like,
you
fuck.
could
like,
put that, you could put the wrist strap on the wrong way round.
I never used those,
and that would be hard
one.
to, you'd be like, shit, it won't come off, and then again you shear the bit of plastic off. Whereas these ones, even the actual bit that you put the grip you put them into is the same color. I also like that it's sort of hollow in the middle, so that all the buttons are still accessible. It doesn't add extra buttons to it; it's the same buttons. And also the extra feature we're going to talk about in a bit is involved in that. But I like how it's like, this is this side and this is this color. You cannot mix and match; they won't work. And that definitely goes into there. because on the old ones, a kid could just take it, go and break it or shove it on or something, you know?
Yeah. And like totally by accident too, you know?
Yeah, I mean, part of me likes the fact that the colors are there. Part of me thinks, oh, well, as soon as they do a special edition and I want to get like the Splatoon colors, the fact that the inside's not going to match now would annoy me a little bit. Like, I'd be like, oh, I kind of wish the inside of my console was green that matched this. But I guess they could do a special edition console where like the left inside is green and then matches the Joy-Con. The controllers for me reminded me of the 2DS XL. It was very much like that black gray with like the blue outline on the 2DS XL. And it's been a while since they've done accents. They used to do them all the time. If the Switch has really been the only generation they've not done it, like the GBA, you had like different color buttons to the console itself. Same with like the SNES, like where this is now back to kind of what they used to do, which was like cool accent colors, and I really like it. I think it looks really sleek.
Yeah, I'm interested. I'm interested to see like what is there going to be a second SKU at launch? Will there be like other options? Are they going to introduce colorways over time?
They're going to sell you Joy-Cons at launch. Like, there's no way.
But like, what does that look like? Are they other black ones with different highlights, or are they all like, or are there different shell options, but the highlights are all the same? Like they all have the blue or the red, so that you can always.
It would make sense if the inside is always blue and red. Maybe the rings around the controllers aren't blue and red, but it would make sense if that inside is always blue and red, so that when you take that out, you always know. And I think, the Switch had, you know, blue that side, red that side. Maybe it was the ones being both grey where people were like, well, is that upside down? Is that? Whereas I think if you, for its entire life cycle, you say, yeah, right is red, left is blue. I just have to look twice to work that out. And then you match that across. That would be a good way of doing it, I think.
Yeah, I guess we'll see. That's definitely a question I'm interested in. Just like the design mechanics of it. Like, how are they going to make those look over time as they start introducing other alternate colorways and stuff like that?
We've got to wait 3 months to even answer any of these questions. Yeah, ridiculous.
Can't wait to speculate wildly. Speaking of which, Andrew Valentine wrote in to say, speculate wildly on uses for the Joy-Con in mouse mode. Which Nintendo franchises will make use of it, and how, and what will be the weird launch / pack-in title that showcases the feature. Also, long-term prediction challenge. How many games will make use of Joy-Con mouse mode in the lifetime of the Switch 2? So if you guys didn't hear this rumor, I'll catch you up real quick. This is a rumor that was making the rounds while we were on break, and it kind of seems like it's a thing. There was a bunch of conversation about the fact that the Switch 2 would have some functionality where you'd be able to like essentially turn the Joy-Con on its side and then use it like a mouse. And it was one of those rumors that like it seemed very silly, and like some people were taking it very seriously, and other people were like, how are you possibly taking this seriously? And then there is a shot in this that very much looks like that's how you're supposed to use it. There's a spot where it shows the Joy-Con like perpendicular to the surface it's on, as if it was in that kind of mouse mode. But then there's also a part of the video where they show the Joy-Con on its side, and you can see what looks like an optical light on the inside of the Joy-Con, which would make sense to use it for that like mouse functionality, right? And that's very much what it looks like. And then
the way they drag along the floor as well in the trailer,
yeah, like it looks like a kind of dragging motion almost.
Why would they move them along the floor like that if there wasn't to signify you can do this? It's not like they don't make any car noises for it to be like, haha, we're being cars. They're floating around, and then all of a sudden they are being dragged along the floor. There's no other way to interpret that as far as I'm concerned.
I think so. And then there's also there is the little attachment that you mentioned as well, Max, right? Where there's like this second little like piece basically that is it like, so okay, in the video they're showing the red Joy-Con, and it's going into this piece of plastic that is like the same color and like texture, you know, kind of like casing as the interior of the Joy-Con, the part that like pops in, and it looks like it's like snapping into that as like some kind of...
It's the wrist strap. It's the wrist strap from the Switch 1. It's that, but instead of sliding it on like
You,
the
like,
old ones,
plop.
you push it into
Yeah.
it. You see as they're moving, you see it in that picture you've got there. See that line at the back? That's the wrist strap.
Oh, yeah. I do see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you attach it to that, and then
I was
you
thinking
turn
it
it.
was a wire at first, but no, you're totally
Yeah.
right. Yeah,
And you see, so you can just see at the top of this little piece of plastic, there's like a gap where that fits into it. That's hollow on the bottom, so the light can come through, which
Gotcha.
also gives you access to the 2 buttons up the top. So when
Yeah, because those
that
buttons
is
are
your
a
wrist
lot
strap,
chunkier now.
yeah, they're a lot chunkier, and they're not like the solution with the Switch was you put that on and then you have additional buttons that push the buttons in the Joy-Con. Whereas this solution is you can just access the whole top of the Joy-Con
Right.
through this gap.
And if you look at it, it looks like there's like, you can kind of see it in the front, right? Like if you look at the the front where there's the plus sign, like there's like a little bit of like light, like where the shadow's coming in. And it looks like there's like maybe like some kind of a black like pad or something there, right? Which like would make sense so that you're not scratching it up as you're dragging it around in mouse mode. You know what I'm saying? It looks like it's like to enable. Yes, exactly.
these?
Those guys, the little slidey boys on the bottom of your mouse, right?
Yeah.
It looks like that.
Cowardly for Nintendo not to just put a full like rolling ball wheel inside this that you can unscrew, take out, like bring it back.
So I'm inclined to say that this is probably real based on all this. It seems like very like way too much smoke for there to be nothing there. So I do think it's a thing. So let's answer some of Andrew's questions here, because I think there's a couple ways I can see it. The first one I want to just get out of the way, the obvious answer. Doc beat us all to the joke. Mario Paint is coming back. That's the obvious answer. Is a Mario Paint port, a Mario Paint 2. Those are easy ways that I could see them making a piece of gimmick software that shows this thing off, because the original Mario Paint used a mouse that you plugged into your Super Nintendo.
Is
And the
Mario
idea
Paint
of
just MS Paint? But
No.
with Mario.
No, it wasn't though, because it also had music tools and animation, and like you could make like shorts in it and stuff like that. So like, yes, there was that functionality, but it also was like a lot of like creative, like, you know, like early like movie maker style game stuff, you know?
Do you know what? That would work really well on the touchscreen in handheld mode. And then when you want to do it on the TV, why would you want to point and wiggle when you could just use the mouse to get the perfect? Yeah, okay.
And I think that you could see how that would make sense with like a social element, right? In the same way that like there's the like doodle system in like Splatoon, like that could be like part of your Nintendo like profile or whatever, right? Where it's like when I go to your page to add you as a friend or whatever, I can like see an animation that you made in Mario Paint or whatever, like something like that.
What's the
totally makes sense.
What's the DS? Is it Flip Notes or Flip Chat or Picture Chat or something?
Picture Chat.
Yeah, then there was an animation one on the 3DS which I think was probably called Flip Notes. I can see this being a. There are games like the World Wonderful 101, which only really works in handheld mode because, you know, you want to tap on the Wonderful 101. Sorry, the World Ends With You, where you want to be tapping on the screen. Whereas when you play that on the Joy-Cons, you're sort of having a less sort of traditional experience. But being able to just straight up emulate the parts of the DS or 3DS where you click on touch stuff with this, you know, mouse would be wicked.
That actually makes a lot of sense when you think about, and we're gonna get to this in a minute, but there's this rumor that the Switch 2 will be able to display an image to the television and then use the bottom screen for other stuff. I could see that being the way that you empower you to like play these games on TV with like using the mouse rather than like a touchscreen. I don't know.
That would be. I can't think of a good use case for it. Like even something like Mario Maker had the solution, right, where you could use the Joy-Con as like a motion control, I believe. Like there's like spin solutions for it where I can basically wave it around in the air and it works like a mouse. It's only really got to be for like fine motor control things that I would ever really want this. I could maybe see them doing something like Game Builder Garage 2. And we kind of expand upon that, and we have a mouse mode.
Or
where,
for like games that really rely on mouse, though. Like if you were like a point and click adventure or something like that, like it would obviously be better to be able to use it. Like I don't know how much actual function, like, you know what I mean? This could be one of those things like the, you know, not haptic feedback. What is it with the?
It'd be like the IR sensor on the other thing.
It is
which worked,
basically
I
that,
think,
where
in
like
8 games.
something like that.
Yeah.
But what if also this allows you to have like the best console version of Civ 7 because it's the only version of Civ
Right,
7
I
where
think
you're
that-
not
I think-
controlling with a stick.
I don't
you
think
know?
that's crazy. I really don't. Like, I think that it is one of those, like, yeah, how many games actually take advantage of this? But it's also like, okay, well, whatever, right? Like, there are so many gimmicks that they shove in these things that have, like, limited use. If all this does is make certain, like, again, like a game like Pokemon Unite, right? Like a MOBA, like, they could give you mouse and keyboard mode and you could play that way. Like, I don't know, like, it's
I
crazy.
could- I don't know that I see that.
That crazy.
I kind of see them chucking in like mini games into Mario Party that use it. I could see them saying this is the solution for DS emulation on the TV if you don't want to use the 2-screen mode. Like I could see stuff like that. I could see that doubling up as the heart rate sensor in the same way that the IR sensor does currently. Like if that's a laser, you could easily put your finger on it and it reads your heart rate. Things like that, I could see them doing it with it, but it's very much this is this generation's gimmick. The IR sensor's out, the optical sensor's in. What do we do with it? Who knows? Labo was the main reason that thing stuck around after 1-2 Switch. God knows what they've got planned for this, but I don't know that third parties really dig deep into this, so I hope Nintendo's got something meaningful for us.
Yeah, but how many third parties are also using the PlayStation's like force feedback triggers or the touchscreen and things like that? These are gimmicks that are for first party to use in really cool ways and for third party to every now and again implement, but also it allows them to do interesting stuff like Labo didn't set the world on fire and it's not most exciting thing, but it was cool. It was a cool way to experiment and use the hardware.
I think the difference with this is that if it even works a little bit, like if it works okay, I shouldn't say that. If it works well, and the only thing that you can say about it is that like maybe it's uncomfortable because it's like Nintendo, they're tiny. Like I can't imagine using a mouse that thin for a long period of time without it hurting my old ass hands. But if that's not a problem, I think the benefit here is that this could empower games that might not have come to the platform to come to the platform, and that is something that's interesting. Like there are games that are mouse and like something like Planet Coaster, right? Or like what? Like you could have the original control scheme closer represented on Switch with this kind of functionality. And I don't know. Like, I don't think that that's a totally crazy idea. Like there was just that announcement not that long ago that they're like, I don't remember if it was confirmation or a rumor that got leaked about like Xbox bringing a mouse and keyboard to Xbox, like it
was ages ago. Yeah, I remember when they announced that the Xbox UI was going to be Windows 10, and that was like E3, like 2016 or 17. They were like mouse and keyboard.
I don't know. Like, it's a crazy idea, but there are clearly applications for it that make sense. It's just a matter of like, is this a thing that's going to be a flash in the pan? Like, is this the gimmick that no one uses, or does it have some functionality?
Yes.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, Steve is planting his flag right now that it's bad. You and I see more on the fence.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying that this is a limited gimmick. It's not going to see like widespread adoption. It's going to have as much use as that IR sensor did, which is gone from these Joy-Cons. The other thing that's gone, the light up ring around the home button that nobody ever saw turn on.
Yeah. It was like, oh, you have an update for like something. It's like, when did that ever actually get used?
It never came on. It was like meant to be like the Wii's flashing disk drive.
Yeah,
when
that's
you had
it.
like a message, but they never implemented anything for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So before we move on from this specific thing, let's just throw the predictions out here. Just ballpark, how many games use the Joy-Con mouse?
Oh, in total for the generation?
It says over the lifetime of the Switch 2. Just
12.
Okay. Oh, I was going to say 10. So, and I'm optimistic. So, all right, I'll say 20 then. If we're going to be,
all right, we'll do prices right, closest without going over. How's that sound?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so you say 20. You said 12.
12.
I'll be bullish. I'll say 21. And if it's any amount over, max is 20, then
Pete's
we'll all be
too
surprised.
Much Price is Right, Max. That's the problem here.
Yeah, that's why he went last. He was like,
no, I
know
went last because
what
you guys answered quickly. I would have gone first. I was gonna say 15, but that's a terrible guess in the context of 12 and 20. It's like I got like 3 numbers that I can win with.
I've just thought of something you could potentially use those things for.
What's that?
Like, what if, you could have, you could do like the exercise shit that they do. Where you have one in each hand, you're like running them down your legs, and it's like tracking like
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
all
sure.
sorts of stuff. Like, there are a lot
Yeah.
of things that they could do with that, and like
You
the
could
best,
strap one
the
on as a
best
heart
use
rate
case-
sensor, yeah.
Yeah, and like that was the best use case of the IR sensor was
Ring
putting
Fit.
your finger on it on Ring Fit, and it tracked. It was probably wildly inaccurate,
Mm-hmm.
but at least it was there.
All right, so let's talk about I think the biggest question about this thing right now, which is that there is a new button that's located below the home button on the right Joy-Con. And Wakahula wrote in and said, "What's this mystery button for? Switchverse group chat interface?" This is one that so there's a rumor that's been making the rounds that you brought to my attention yesterday, Steve, which is that there is a rumor that the device will be able to kind of basically do like something similar to how the Wii U had that functionality where there was always like 2 screens being displayed on Wii U, right? And there was that button you could press where it would flip what was on the handheld screen versus what was on the TV, and then you could switch them back and forth. It's something kind of similar to that, where like it seems like the ability is supposed to be that like you could be playing your Switch in handheld mode and then like press this button and project an image to your television without it being docked, and that would enable DS and 3DS emulation, so you could do the 2-screen stuff. And then, obviously there's like a lot of other like that kind of asymmetrical gameplay functionality and stuff that we experienced on Wii U that they could emulate again using this technology. Like if there was one of those games they wanted to bring back, or if they wanted to try something new in that vein, like this opens up those opportunities again. I think that's a pretty good guess, right? Like if I didn't know that was a rumor, I might have thrown out some other ideas prior to that, but like, yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me based on what we've heard.
Yeah, rumor is meant to have a C on it, and we've seen that in some of the leaked mock-ups, some of the stuff that was at CES. I think the C is going to come back. I think they're probably going to show us that at the event, or either at the events or at the Nintendo Direct that we've got coming up in April. But it could be that this is a chat button. I don't see that they get their act together and do some kind of chat, like Wakahula's suggesting. Like, for me, I think the casting functionality seems way more enticing. It also opens up the possibility that you can have a Switch Lite that doesn't necessarily need to have like a dock, and you don't have to have the detachable Joy-Cons, but you can have a C button and it casts a version of the screen to the TV. It gets around that. It makes it cheaper to make, and they've got the functionality. NVIDIA's built that, and it's something that's meant to be here, and we've heard about that before. I think that's probably where it is. I don't think that there's smoke without fire. I think C stands for cast.
I think that makes sense. I really do.
I agree. I think it's one of those things that like people have always wanted to sort of like have that sort of wireless docking function. Granted, you still need the dock, but if that can open up more functionality, the same way that that there are things that the Wii U did well, that it's a shame it required a whole extra peripheral and all that sort of stuff. Right, it was included, but like it's an extra thing to charge. It was a huge extra controller for something as light and nimble as the Switch to be able to interface with its dock wirelessly, which then also, like you say, opens up the different asymmetrical game modes, or opens up emulation and things like that. That would be such a winner, especially considering you can be sat on your sofa. I want to put this game on the TV quickly. I don't want to have to go up, put it in, take the Joy-Cons off, put them on the thing. It's just like, I'll press this button, HDMI CEC kicks in, it swaps over to that thing. Cool, now I'm doing that. Even if it allows you to do it brings back some of those Wii U menus where the map's in your hands now, All of those features.
Yeah, that would be sick.
we
Like being
love.
able to bring back some of the stuff from, say, Splatoon, where I can have it in my hands and I tap on the map to who I want to jump to, and I'm immediately
Yeah.
going there. So all that functionality was really cool, and they
Yeah.
were obviously onto something with that. I don't think they had the tech the right way around.
Yeah.
This way around,
Oh, the
the
console
power
was
in your
also a
hands.
failure. So it's like,
Yeah,
you know,
massive
I
failure.
feel like you didn't really get a chance to like follow those ideas to their natural conclusion.
But at the same time, you've got so many great games like the Zelda Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask remake that are both, use the 3DS's second screen heavily, and now they can just port those games with some updated graphics, and all of the functionality is now also on the Switch.
All those games are also all stranded now, right? Because the eShop doesn't
Yeah.
exist. So like
Yeah.
wanting to have a way to like sell them to a
Bring
new
'em
audience
back,
on a
yeah.
new piece of
Yeah.
hardware. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, right? Like it's functionality that it feels very Nintendo, and I think it speaks to a lot of problems we've identified that they've been looking to address the last couple of years. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they also didn't sell the dock in most markets. Like, you couldn't buy a second dock in the UK. If they've got a solution of, I don't necessarily have to buy a dock, but I can buy like a little dongle that I plug into the TV instead. So in the living room, I'll have my main Switch dock, but up in the bedroom, I'll have the little dongle. And then if I want to go upstairs, I just cast to that. Like that kind of thing would be really cool to
Yeah.
have. Like, I can plug it into multiple TVs. And if I go to like a hotel, I can quickly plug it in and cast it to the hotel
Yeah.
TV. Like, that's the kind of thing I think I'd really like to see.
And like anecdotally, like I remember having an experience like that when the Switch was new, and I was a regular at a bar in my old town, and like I was friends with the bartender, so like we would like bring a Switch dock and like hook up Mario Kart and stuff, and it's like how nice would it be if you could literally just like press a button, stick it down, and just pick up a controller, right? And it's like how much it makes like, if you're willing to maybe make concessions in terms of like quality or whatever, like that functionality is super, super useful. And I can even see it in like a more casual situation. If it's like, oh, like I'm playing something in handheld mode, right? And like your partner is like watching something on the TV, and they get up and like they go to the bathroom, and they're like, they're like on the phone or something, and you're like, cool, and you press a button and take over the TV, and you play on the TV, and then you're like, oh, they're back, great, push it and like let them, you know what I mean? Like you could just keep rocking, like with that kind of seamless, like the game just keeps playing, right? Which is one of the things that we love about the Nintendo Switch. So like
having your games be accessible is the huge part of why the Switch was so popular and why we are big handheld guys. That's what we are. But yeah, the being able to like you say, just quickly swap in, swap out, it makes you more nimble and makes you be able to fit games in where they can. And we're getting older. We've got responsibilities to deal with. Being able to fit games in where we can, great.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
also
like,
we're getting older. I don't want to bend down to the dock.
my whole back can't take it. Yeah, I love, because remember how you made the comment earlier about like, oh, like our friendship started with Nintendo. I love the idea of like 10 years from now we're like getting ready to Nintendo Switch 3, and Steve's like, yeah, I really can't be doing those bends anymore. These knees, they don't work the same way they did at Nintendo Switch 2's launch.
I can tell you now that Steve's knees are going to be stronger in 10 years' time than they are right now. I can tell you that.
Quite possibly.
He'll be bionic at that point, yeah.
He will.
Yeah.
All right, let's move along. So then one of the other new features, updated things, whatever, is the kickstand is different. It is a little bit more similar to the kickstand on the OLED Switch, where like rather than just being like the one little tiny, like bike.
The afterthought.
Yeah, like the bike kickstand.
That was truly awful.
It's like it's like a U-shaped like one piece that just comes off the back, and it can go way flat or it can sit upright like we've expected. Steve's dad, Andy Rads, wrote it and said that stand looks flimsy, and it's so funny to me because it's like, my brother in Christ, do you remember the original Switch's kickstand?
Yeah, that
stand was flimsy. My God, you kidding me?
This does
light
look
breeze
flimsier
would knock that shit over, and it was only on one side. So if you tapped it at the upper right, it would just go the fuck over.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember trying to do it in a plane. Like I was like living
Yeah.
the Switches.
The guy playing Skyrim on the
TV
plane.
The thing fell over with the slightest bit of turbulence. It was like, boom,
So
gone.
the issue as well is that if you open it, close it, there's a little it was only held on by tension at the bottom.
like,
so if it was,
bend the
you have to
plastic
bend
back
it
in.
in and push it in.
Yeah.
Awful. The OLED one is perfect, and this looks like it's exactly the same mechanism. They've just taken a load of the weight out, which I'd imagine probably because they need that extra space inside for something. They just need more extra space for battery or the actual parts or whatever. So to slim it down somewhat, they've just cut that bit out, and now it's flush at the back. So I don't think it looks any flimsier because it still goes all the way around. It's still the same looking mechanism of like it looks firm the whole way round. There's just less of it. So I don't know if
There's
that's necessarily a
The
bad.
OLEDs looks more elegant. I do agree with my dad. I do think it looks like. I think people are going to use that as a handle. I think it's probably going to snap off.
I don't know.
I-
It's one of those things where like I can see what you're saying if it's like a flimsy plastic, but it like I don't know. Like I don't know. I'm not super worried about it. And if you look at it as it stretches out, it has two little extra like support legs that come out at the top to prop it up. So I don't know. I think it'll be fine. We'll see.
Yeah, I also never used the kickstand, so I don't really
because it
care
was
all
awful
that much.
too, right? So it's like
true.
maybe if it's good, maybe people will actually use like
The OLED kickstand.
Well, and I guess
use
if
all
there's
the
some
time.
functionality as well, like if there's some games where I want to cast to the TV and there's something happening on the second screen,
or
and
yeah,
then
if
I'm
you want to
using
use the second
mouse
screen as a
mode,
map, right, or something
Yeah.
like that. Like yeah. Okay, so then next up is the dock, which I think is interesting because it's very different. It's like much smaller. It has it. At least it looks much smaller to me. It looks like it has a smaller footprint. And just looking at this thing, I'm kind of thinking that the whole rumor about expandable, power in the dock seems like probably not true.
I don't think that was ever. I don't know that was ever a
Like
real
real.
thing.
I don't
we
think that was ever
yeah.
a real thing.
Like I think the dock is a dumb dock. It's just a pass through, but I think the Switch can get a lot more power when it is docked. There was another rumor related to this dock when we saw some leaks coming out about it, which was because it doesn't cover the whole screen now, people were speculating that whether this has any kind of sense of reality or not, I don't know, that the top part of the screen can show some information when it's off, when it's docked. So like say you have a notification and it pops up on the screen.
Sliver though.
It is,
That
yeah.
seems like a crazy thing to suggest that people are going to be getting information from the top like 1% of the screen that's visible. I don't know about that.
I could see them doing that because they have taken off the glowing blue light, so maybe
Yeah.
you get like a little number on the screen or something instead, and like so you can still see that there is something you've got to action without having
Maybe.
to have that light glow up.
But yeah, I'm definitely out on the theory that the dock has any functionality beyond what it's already had. Just based on the size of this thing, it just doesn't seem likely to me.
I agree. Yeah, my whole thought of like, oh, maybe this provides I think it provides the extra power the same way that the ROG Ally can use a higher wattage charger to, go into like a boost mode. And I think that maybe is how we're going to potentially go up to like 4K or something here. I don't think it's going to be possible unless that dock is plugged in and it's got the proper wattage going through it. But I don't think there's like any upscaling or like eGPU or anything like that going on at all. I think it's going to be
The
dumb
upscaling,
USB.
I think, comes from DLSS. I think that's where all that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the other things we had heard about that ended up getting confirmed here was the two USB-C ports, right? There's one on the top and then one on the bottom. Trendy Brandy wrote in and said, what do you think about the second USB-C port? Is it for peripherals, convenient charging? Would love to hear the thoughts. I'm kind of thinking it's for both. Like I would imagine it's primarily like a convenience factor thing that if you want to have a peripheral plugged into the device while you're charging it, like that was previously impossible, right? There's also always the chance that maybe they do have some kind of like clamshell second screen
That was a rumor as well.
Planned, right? Like that's not unheard of. Like you could easily get a high quality screen with a USB connector that just plugs in and like doesn't need to do, all it needs to be is a screen, and that the switch to already having the ability to have those two displays and like it that could be a thing, right? And like if we are thinking that there are going to be all these games that take advantage of a double screen experience, or that they do want to open up a path to remaking, remastering, porting DS and 3DS games, then That I don't think that's crazy at all, and that could be an immediate answer as to why this exists.
Mm-hmm.
Do we think that the reason for that cutout stand is so that you can have like things sort of further down the back? If you had like a screen that clipped to the front and maybe it needed a bit more of a bit down the back,
Like, so you could lay it flat and have the other screen open.
yeah, so more so that if you have it like slightly clipped to the front, that there's enough at the back that it's not going to just topple backwards.
Oh, okay.
And you can have it sort of cropped up, and then you can still pull the kickstand out without declipping the whole thing, because there's enough of a gap down here, and that would open up around whatever accessory there could be.
Yeah, could be.
I think that the cast button lends great. Like if the cast button does the wireless like we think it does. That would add up with a greater need for charging that doesn't break the thing. You know, if you have, something that doesn't break the charging cable, because if you're charging from the bottom, people do it with their phones all the time. The reason that iPhone cables break isn't because iPhone cables are crap. It's because people on their phones in bed bend the cable against them.
Yeah.
And I think that happens with switches as well. You have your switch plugged in, you're charging it from the bottom, whereas if they're saying like, right, you want to be able to play this remotely wirelessly, you're going to have to charge this thing because it's not going to be plugged in. Therefore, we need that second port on the top, but the dock needs a port at the bottom. So let's have both. You know.
Yeah. I think it could be either of those solutions. It could be that they have broader plans for it, or it could just be a like recognizing a limitation of the original Switch and wanting to address it and just have quality of life improvement. You know. Okay, so then the last kind of like big thing that they announced, not the last thing we'll talk about, is the confirmation of both physical and digital backwards compatibility. But then they also cautioned that some games will not be included, and they did like say that they would have details on the website later as to like what that was. So I'll just read what they wrote and then we can interpret that as we'd like. You can play Nintendo Switch 2 exclusive games as well as Nintendo Switch games on Nintendo Switch 2, asterisk, and then the asterisk is Nintendo Switch 2 plays both physical and digital Nintendo Switch games. Certain Nintendo Switch games may not be supported on or fully compatible with Nintendo Switch 2. Details will be shared on the Nintendo website at a later date. Nintendo Switch Online members can continue using the service on Nintendo Switch 2. So quite a bit of information to parse there. But
I think that means that there are some things like Ring Fit, that things that don't work on the Switch Lite, for example, because they require a Joy-Con that is, it comes
or
attached
like the Labo, right? Like needs the AR sensor.
Anything that requires the IR sensor, anything that requires like the old, and a peripheral that the old Joy-Con slots into, whether that's like a fishing game, the fishing games that have those Joy-Con bits, all of that stuff is not going to work on this new thing because it's too big. Granted that you might be able to pair an old Joy-Con to a new system and use it as like a Player 2 controller.
That was my thought. Is I bet you could still play Ring Fit because it doesn't need to. They don't need to be on the device. Like you could, if you can pair an old Joy-Con, theoretically you could pair it and then just plug it into the attachment and use it.
And that's probably true, but they also probably can't say, oh yeah, that's possible, because that requires you buying another. You can't just buy the Switch 2 and Ring Fit and it works. You have to buy the Switch 2, Ring Fit, and a set of Joy-Con. So I think they're just covering themselves there and saying, hey, these games don't work on the Switch 2.
I think that's why it says not fully compatible, because it's like some of them will probably, it's like, well, with a workaround it could work, but out of the box
but some games may not be supported on.
Right, and that I would think would be something more like Labo, or like the 3D stuff, right? Because it's like you do need the things that are built into the, like you need Joy-Cons on the Nintendo Switch to use that 3D stuff in like Breath of the Wild, right? So it's like I think you're exactly hitting the nail on the head of what won't be included, and I also think that you're right that there are probably some things that there will be workarounds for, as provided you can somehow use old Joy-Cons wirelessly.
I think that if we looked back at the Switch Lite announcement, we'd see a very similar message of not all software is compatible.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
And it would be anything that requires Joy-Cons to be removed, or anything that's like multiplayer in a way where it's like you take these two Joy-Cons off, you hand one to a friend, like snipper clips. You couldn't just on the Switch Lite play snipper clips, but you could if you had a second set of Joy-Cons to attach to them.
Same with Switch Sports.
Really
works.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
I actually think it goes further than that. Personally, I think they're going to be some games that just don't work. They're going to have to use an emulation layer, similar to how Valve has Proton, in order to get these games to work. The architecture is not compatible.
Okay, so I want to pull in a question here because I think you're about to get there. So Yoshubaru wrote in and said, do you think the asterisk on backwards compatibility is rooted in compatibility issues, like we just said, with unique accessories like Ring Fit or Labo? Or do you think there could be deeper incompatibility between the two systems resulting from the evolution in the Switch's SoC architecture? What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's the SoC is not compatible, and so they need some kind of transpilation layer, which we kind of assumed was going to happen anyway. And I think some games they just haven't put the effort in for it. It's probably going to be mostly third-party games. I'd imagine pretty much every first-party game is going to be supported because Nintendo will have put the effort in to make sure that those games work. But some games, I would hazard a guess that they're just not compatible because it's emulation. So I may be wrong. It may be that it's just the controllers, but I'm pretty positive that these chips just aren't out of the box compatible.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that either. Okay, so then our friend of the show, Chewy Plays Nintendo, wrote in and said they confirmed digital games would be backwards compatible, also physical. Do you think we'll be logging into the same eShop? I think that's
I hope not.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was about to say, I fucking hope not.
I don't know. Because I could kind of see it going either way. Because you think about what happened with the Wii and the Wii U, right? Where it was like, if you bought a Wii U, you could transfer your Wii games to your Wii U, and then you'd have to like enter Wii mode, and that was like how you got into those games, but you couldn't access the Wii eShop. You could only transfer. So it's like, I don't know. Like, it could be that they're just like, hey, like, we just have the eShop, and we want to just keep the eShop.
I think that's what it's going to be, but
that
I think
makes the most sense to me. That's
Chewy's question to me, I interpret it as: is it going to be the same shitty, clunky app?
Yeah, probably.
That's basically just a website that doesn't load properly and is laggy. Yeah. It doesn't really have proper charts. There's no real kind of categories or way to navigate around it, and you end up seeing the same apps at the top of the charts all the time until someone does a sale and makes their game 99p for a day.
I think yes.
To game it.
I think that's definitely what's going to happen. I think it's just going to be similar to like what you see on Xbox or PlayStation now, where it's like they flag. You know, if you're on the Nintendo Switch, it doesn't show you Nintendo Switch 2 software, maybe.
Yeah.
Or it tells you this is a Nintendo Switch 2 game and you can't play it.
I don't know. I want a new interface. To me, new generation screams new interface. That was one thing I think PlayStation did get right. But I do also kind of like Xbox's approach where they didn't reinvent the wheel between the Xbox One and the Series X. It was familiar. It did feel like this is the next evolution. And I kind of feel like that's the kind of situation with the Switch 2.
Evolution,
the trailer
not
was like,
revolution.
yeah, it's an evolution, not a revolution, and we're going to kind of move towards it's more of the same. And I think that's what people want.
Have you guys seen this week? Nintendo Life launched an eShop, a new eShop. It's like the better eShop. It's like Nintendo Life / eShop or whatever, where it does all of the here's all the deals, here's all the, cuts a lot like guff out. It's like a new interface. I'm pretty sure that each link then takes you to that appropriate eShop link.
Oh, that's cool.
Check out. It's a great looking project. I was really impressed with it when I was looking at it yesterday.
Something for us to take advantage of when we still have to use the same eShop.
Yes, yeah. I think yeah. If this is going to be the exact same eShop, I think we are going to be probably heading to Nintendo Life quite a lot to look through the eShop.
It's not Nintendo Life. It's bettereshop.com. I think is where it is.
Oh, I see. But I think that automatically links to Nintendo Life / eShop, doesn't it? When I was on there, it did the same. It's definitely Andrew Dickerson. Sorry, Andy. Oh wow, help me out.
Robinson?
Who's the Ant? Oh my God.
You think about it. Let's keep the show moving, okay? All right. So next up, as part of what we saw here, right? Like this wasn't an official bullet point, right? But like they showed us Mario Kart, right? The next Mario Kart, because there's some stuff here that pretty clearly shows that this is not Mario Kart 8, right? We got a look at it. What I'm not the most well versed on Mario Kart tracks, but what looked like a new track to me. But it looks like it could support up to 24 racers based on, if you look at one of the screenshot, like they have all the little like half squares.
Starting blocks.
Yeah, the starting blocks for the racers. And it looks like there's 24 of them. In the race itself, it looks like it's 14 racers that are shown. So like, yeah, I mean, that's very interesting, obviously, quite a bit different. The other thing that I noticed that I thought was interesting is it looks like the updated Donkey Kong design is kind of getting locked in across everything. Like the
I love it.
new design that they did for the Super Mario Brothers movie that is reminiscent of like the original Donkey Kong design seems to be on display here. He's got that more like cartoony look, like the big smile, and
It's so retro. He looks like more cuddly. He looks like a great big,
Yeah.
like he's got these massive arms. I do think that
has like a stuffed animal quality to it a little bit.
Yeah, the modern Donkey Kong design is very like, I don't know, like edgy 2000s design.
Yeah.
Like with the tie and the sort of like he's got like a Dwayne the Rock Johnson, like, you know, one eye up, like I'm a DreamWorks character
Yeah,
thing.
he looks like a tough guy.
Yeah, which I think Donkey Kong works best when he's like, I'm a big cuddly guy, you know.
Yeah, he
'cause
should
you
be
get
like
the
a
same
little
noises.
goofy, you know?
Yeah, and I think that this design, if this is how they're, you know, going with everything from now on, that would be great. I would love for them to see like to do a new Donkey Kong game, and to maybe just say goodbye to Donkey Kong with this re-release, the current iteration of Donkey Kong with this re-release that came out today.
They've been. There's a rumor, right, that we reported on back at Loot Pots that they made a new internal team to make Donkey Kong games. That was like 6 years ago. So the idea that we might actually finally see a 3D Donkey Kong game.
It would make sense. I'm surprised we didn't have one in line with the kind of park launch. I thought we would have had something there.
Well, yeah, I think he's got a
But
movie
maybe they
coming.
do it with the movie.
He's got a movie
Yeah, maybe
coming
they do
too,
it with the
right?
movie,
And maybe
yeah.
even if it's not like at the same time, it's like similar to like Wonder, where it's like the movie came out, everybody's talking about Mario, a new game came out later that year.
There's a Donkey Kong movie coming out.
There is, yeah, they're doing.
Oh, wicked!
They're doing a spin-off.
Oh, it's the not Jack Black. It's the
Seth Rogen.
Seth Rogen.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that whole crew.
That's my impression of him laughing.
That's your Seth Rogen impression?
I that's the first time I've ever done it.
Okay. I figured you would have, done the laugh or something, but that's
That's what I was trying to do. That is what I was trying to do.
Oh, you should work on that one. That's not
Yeah,
so good. That's not your
okay.
best
All
one.
right.
God. I was over the moon with Mario Kart. I thought it looked great. By the way, it is a new track. Like at the beginning, it says Mario Brothers Circuit when they go through that like start
Okay.
section. Totally new circuit. We've never seen that before.
I thought because
There's,
there was
the
like that little Yoshi restaurant. And I was like, I don't
the little
recognize
Yoshi
that.
diner. Oh my god,
Yeah.
it looks so cool. And like the detail on the ground was something I noticed. Like we've never seen texture like that in a Mario Kart game. Like it's very clean, especially with the Mario Kart Tour tracks that they ported over to 8 with the DLC.
Yeah, have like a sleek look to them.
Yeah, they're just like very flat and plain and like simple. This looks like there's going to be some actual like texture and detail, and like the locations I think are going to be absolutely stunning.
Did you notice
Racing with 23 other people is going to be awesome.
I don't know if you noticed this too, but there are like street lights along.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if they're gonna have like daytime and nighttime versions. of every
Dynamic
track.
lighting would be really cool. Yeah, like I think there's a lot of stuff they could do with it, but I think the rumors seem to be lining up that there was going to be a new Mario Kart game in 2025. It looks like that's probably going to be the launch title for the Switch. The rumor was that was a late 2025 title, but based on the
But now it
dates
kind
that
of seems like
we've
the console's coming out in late 2020. So it's
yeah,
like, okay,
it could well be that they just
Yeah.
do that as the launch title, and that would be like a banger launch title because everyone buys Mario Kart.
Yeah.
if you make this one of the launch titles and then you have like a big single player game, I think you're in great shape, right? Like I think that's like kind of the platonic ideal, and I feel like the earlier you get this out, the quicker it starts selling like an insane amount of copies. And
Between the Switch and the Wii U versions of Mario Kart 8, that game sold 73 million units,
pretty good.
which is a lot of units. It makes it like in the top 10 best-selling games of all time.
Mhm.
So I think to launch your new system with the last system's killer app is genius. Like,
The last two
exactly.
systems killer apps.
Well, yeah,
the
good
best-selling game on your last two consoles.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And I hope they go with the Mario Kart X moniker that was
Yeah.
rumored as well. Like because Chewie made the point before that
Tour is 10.
Tour,
Or Tour
is 9.
Right, yeah.
Tour is
So,
9,
'cause- yeah, Tour is 9, so the next one should be 10. X is a cool moniker. I think it looks like it's shaping up to be something really good. I hope they do more than just racing. Like, I hope they expand on the battles and things like that. Like, that's something I'd love them to go back into.
Did you notice that it's not just Donkey Kong that's had a redesign? Like, all of the characters, Mario and Luigi are the two I'm thinking of. I forgot their names for a second. They are more chibi, old school looking. Like, it's like they're more Mario Kart-esque designs than their modern.
They got a revamp for Wonder. So they
It's
got
not
like
quite
a bit
that.
of a redo.
It's not quite that, but if you look at the screenshot, you will see that they are shorter. Their carts are shorter. Everyone's a little bit more chibi-fied. So it seems like
Carts
this is
have
like
been redesigned a bit, yeah.
Yeah, this is like a Mario Kart, like an overhaul of the franchise that makes it look less like the Mario that you see everywhere else, and like a little bit more of its own identity, maybe, which would line up with it being like celebration of Mario Kart. Maybe it's got like maybe it's the now this is going to would be ridiculous, but this is going to be the Smash Brothers Everyone Is Here thing of like, here's generations worth of tracks and all these tracks that have come back, and here's the classic
I kind of feel like they
of
do the opposite, and they're going to sell us track packs, and they're going to suck all the money they can out of us over the years. I think that's the way they do it.
70 million copies isn't enough for them. They want more.
No, it's not, because that's why they did the DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe.
It's true. Yeah, I think you're probably right. It'll probably be like a base experience, and then they'll have like a DLC plan because of how well that worked with the last game. Quick question here. This one comes from Left over on the Discord, who says, do I finally buy Mario Kart after all this time? Or is it officially wait for a new one time? It's officially wait for a new one time, buddy. You did it. You waited 10 years.
I'm allowing.
You waited just long enough.
You missed out on the best Mario Kart game there's ever been, though. So that's,
until the next one, hopefully. We'll see.
Yeah.
So then a couple other like just quick details in terms of like what's next, because that kind of wraps up the announcements. We have a couple more questions to get into here, but basically our next at bat here is April 2nd is the Nintendo Direct that they're gonna,
You know what, Pete? Let me tell you, I was elated and then heartbroken.
I know. I was so disappointed that it was. I was like, oh, it's coming out in April. I was like, that's perfect.
Yeah. Even more so, I thought it was the 4th of February, and then I realized I was watching an American video, and it was actually the 2nd of April, and I was like, "Are you fucking joking?"
Yeah, that is the curse because I was like, oh, February, that makes sense because it's literally next month. It's a few weeks away. And then I was like, oh no, that's because then a few places, our friends over at Overkill reported on it as February because they made the same mistake we did. And then it was only Jason Schreier saying April that I was like, I think Jason Schreier would have double, triple, quadruple checked that before he posted anything. Yeah. And yet there it is, April the whatever 2nd.
Yeah, so I was disappointed by that, if I'm honest. Like I with all the grains of salt applied, right, of like, we're not normal, so like we had this stuff spoiled for us and everything. That's all fine. This was the thing that disappointed me, of being like, it's not out in April. That's when we actually get to learn more about it, and then they're going to do in-person events like they did with the Switch. I'm going to try to go to the one in New York that's nearby.
Yeah,
you guys are going to try to go to
the one in London.
Yeah,
we'll see if we can get there and get some early access to do some reporting. But yeah, I mean, that makes me feel like the thing probably doesn't come out until like near the end of the year, which sucks. Like, I don't want to wait until the fall, like I want the thing to be out. And
it could be a summer release, but that would be weird.
I'm thinking June, July.
It would be weird though, right? But I mean, again,
these events go all the way up to June, Max.
Do they?
So I don't think it's June.
I mean,
but surely you want to get just in time for the summer holidays.
Right?
You get just in time for the school holidays.
Yeah.
You get just in time for my birthday. And
that could be right.
And
they end these events in June, and it's like it comes out right after that or right in July. So it's like you played it and you're hot on it and it's available, or like that's when pre-orders go live. I don't know.
The Switch Play Live events they started in January. I'm pretty sure they were only for like a couple of weeks, and they were only in January, and then that system didn't launch till March. So if they do end in June, it could be that they do
September.
Probably September.
It could be September, but it could also be that they're like,
release a console.
While the Switch is out, you're still getting people in trying it for free, but then again, they don't need to because they know what the Switch is. So they don't really have anything new to say. It's just going to be games at that point, probably. Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wish I did know.
Me too. I wish I did know. And I really wish that we had a more accelerated timeline here. But hopefully at least once April starts, we'll get a lot more touch points, right? Like we'll get more conversation. We got another question here from Alopius who wrote in and said, do you think there will be any minor reveals like commercials from Nintendo between now and April?
No.
Probably not. And I think after April is when you'll get those, right? We'll probably not hear anything else about it. We'll get our first hands-on. We'll get the direct. They'll announce the launch lineup, all that kind of stuff. Maybe announce some, stuff that's a couple, like a little bit of a ways out, not like they did with Prime.
Yeah, well, I also want to see what the new Pro controller looks like. Are there any additional accessories that we can buy? Like all of that stuff we'll get.
Right.
But yeah, there's not going to be anything until that direct. I think they did. I still think they didn't want to show us yet, and they only did with the hardware thing because they kind of had their hand forced. But
yeah, it sounds like they were going to reveal it in April because remember they said that they were. Well, no, they did say they would reveal it this calendar year, this financial.
Maybe
year.
it was supposed to be the on the very end of that. So let's say it ends in March, right? If you do it in March, the director's out in 2 weeks' time. That makes more sense than what they've done now. But what they've probably done now is, like you say, hands have been forced. Shit, everyone knows everything we've already got to say. Let's get ahead of it. Let's shut people up. Our customer service is getting rammed.
Yeah. I think
it also it stops you wanting to buy the next the current console, right? Which I would imagine they're pretty pissed off about.
Yeah. They were hoping to sell at least 4 million by the end of this year. Yeah. Now people are going to stopping buying it in January.
I mean, unless they do a price cut, which that would make sense, especially considering if the new console is coming out later this year and they're probably not going to put any games, any big games out between now and then. Doing a price cut is a way to keep money coming in and create a marketing beat that doesn't require you to play any of your cards too early. So if you do that now, between now and April, that could make sense.
Wow. Switch's first price cut in year 8.
Right? Why not?
And
maybe you do that. Maybe you do that at the same time that you announce the Switch 2, right? It's like the Switch 2's, here's the release
I think that's
date.
probably going to happen.
MSRP $350. Now Nintendo Switch down to $200. Nintendo Switch Lite $150.
Yeah, it'll be the Switch 2 joins the Switch family of systems, and you can now get it starting at just $199, and then this one starts at $399.
Yeah, I think that's probably right, except for the cost, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So then the last question before we get into the question block, this is the last focused question about one of the specific things we talked about. This is another one from Andy Rads, who said, no specs.
Yeah,
I wasn't expecting
I'm not surprised.
specs. Yeah,
no. They don't talk about them, and they never have.
Who's it for?
Yeah, they don't. There's no. Yeah. They have nothing to gain by talking about what's inside it because it's not impressive.
I disagree. I think it's extremely impressive to the stuff that Nvidia's achieved with such limited power is insane, and I really think that the DLSS stuff alone is
that's not a spec thing
from the rafters about.
You know what I mean though? That's the thing that you
explain. It is and it isn't, because that's the kind of shit that Nvidia pulls. The 5090 is is the same power as the 4090, but it's a fraction of the cost or whatever. And it's well, it's not really. It's actually DLSS 4 that's doing all the hard work there, and you're kind of saying it is.
My point there is that if you just release the specs without the context of what the specs are doing, then it's
it looks like junk.
It's just line items,
8 gigs
right?
of RAM. It's cool,
and then people can be, that doesn't have enough RAM. That's this. That's that.
Yeah,
and
you can extrapolate these things without context.
Exactly.
Far too easily, yeah.
And you wanna, I think anyway, right? You hold that close to your chest, and you either never comment on it because they don't care, or you wait until you've already explained what. How DLSSR is going to take these things, and, it's with the power of probably a cooler way to describe, right? They'll, with, whatever, blast processing.
Nintendo
power. With the power of blast processing, we'll be able
Super Nintendo.
I don't think they talk about it in these consumer events at all. I feel like that's, maybe something for a GDC event where they talk about the specs and what people can do with it, but consumers don't care. They just want to see what the new Mario Kart looks like, and that's what they're excited about.
Yeah.
The worst thing that ever happened to video game discourse is companies using specs as marketing beats.
Yeah,
because
thanks,
now you
Sega.
get and then as soon as the Xbox were like, oh, ours has got this many teraflops, and then they were like, well, how many teraflops does the PlayStation have? That doesn't make any sense to me. Now this has this many teraflops, and this, that, the other, and this has got this much RAM, and it's like it doesn't actually really matter.
Information's only useful if you know what you're talking about, and I think that's the problem with these things. Is like
it doesn't matter. Like it's one thing to be like, I'm building a PC and I'm doing this, blah blah blah, because they're scalable. You can build a PC that's weaker and do that, or you can build a PC that's £2,000 and run the games that well. You have no control over this on console, and whatever console you buy, the games are going to play pretty much identically. You're arguing over pointless numbers that don't matter. Which is my favorite thing to do, though, I should say. And I think doing that with the Switch, where Nintendo doesn't care, all you're doing is you're giving. It's like when, as soon as people are like, "Oh, we're using our next gen engine," now next gen is meaningless because next gen doesn't mean the next generation. It just means that looks better than that. That's next gen. The Breath of the Wild engine. What do you mean the Breath of the Wild engine? We don't know what engine Breath of the Wild even actually uses. Breath of the Wild and Kirby could be using the same engine. What do you mean by that?
I think they are. I think they're both Unreal.
I don't think they're on. I don't think the first Unreal Engine Nintendo game was Yoshi.
It might have been the Yoshi game, yeah.
So, it's meaningless buzzwords that people have taken because game developers say these things like, "This is in the Decima engine." People go, "Oh, Decima, that means this," but it doesn't mean anything because, like you say, these games, they could all be in Unity and they could all be slightly different. People don't know enough about these things to use them to go bat for bat in online arguments. And I think releasing specs does, from Nintendo's point of view, is arm people who don't have positive things to say with, "Oh, well, this only had this much RAM, so it's not going to run very well."
Yeah, it distracts from the messaging. I think that's why you don't want to introduce variables. I think is ultimately the answer there. I think you're right. All right, so let's jump into the question block. We got a couple general questions we'll get into before we wrap it up here. This one comes from that Doc guy who said, obligatory hopes and dreams question, but in all seriousness, is it going to be a day one pickup for you? It sure is for me. I missed out on the launch for Switch, and I regret it. Definitely a day one pickup for me. I try to buy consoles now, day and date, but also I'm a Nintendo guy. I've been waiting for this
I also
for
feel
forever.
Like you get the most longevity out of it then. I get it day one. I feel like I'm getting all the perks and the benefits from it from the beginning. But also, this lasted 8 years. If you can't afford one at launch or you can't get one at launch, don't feel too bad. You've got another 7 years to kind of pick one up. But for me, it's a day one pickup. Hopes and dreams. I'm dreaming of an OLED display, but I don't think it's going to be
Me
there,
too.
sadly.
That's my number one hope, if there's anything, is that they will announce that I can get an OLED model for a few dollars more. That would be an ideal situation. Besides that, I mean, it's really just it's what it is, right? What I wanted was a slightly bigger, slightly more powerful Switch, and that's what this looks like. So, I mean, it looks like they're saying all the things I wanted to hear. So give me an OLED screen and I'll be over the moon.
In terms of raw horsepower, though, by the way, it's 10 times more powerful than the current Switch. So there's a significant, revolutionary jump in terms of power.
Yeah, that's huge. Wakahula also wrote in on that same vein and said, day one pre-order / purchase for me, it's exactly what I wanted. Bigger, better, and supposedly more bigger and better supposedly Switch with full backwards compatibility. Yeah, I think they're saying all the right things.
Hopes and dreams for me is OLED screen. That'd be really nice to still have that. Day one for me is I would like to, in an ideal world, get this on day one, but that's only if the games that I want to play day one are going to see a bump. Like if it launches with Metroid Prime 4 and that is better than it's going to play on my OLED Switch, I'll do that. I guarantee that's probably going to happen. If Xenoblade Chronicles X that I'm planning on playing, if they're like, that game will be out by the time we find anything more about this, but still, if they say, you'll be able to play this game at 60 FPS or 1080p 4K or whatever they say, then I'll probably get one day one. However, I don't know if I'm going to buy this day one just for Mario Kart. Sorry to say, I like Mario Kart,
but I don't think it's going to just be Mario Kart. I think Pete's right. There will be a single player experience.
I don't know why you hold
Metroid.
I don't know why you hold it this long if that's not the plan, right? I think it's almost definitely Metroid.
Oh, if you do Mario Kart and Metroid day one, that's
I think
fantastic,
those are two
both.
Of maybe three, or maybe you have another game on there too, right? And
another 3D Mario, maybe like Odyssey 2 or whatever.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, this next one comes from Andy Rads, who said Nintendo President Shintaro Furukawa previously told investors the company had held off releasing the Switch 2 to ensure enough launch units would be available. How confident are you we won't fall foul of scalpers?
They've made like 20 million of them, and that's their plan is
Yeah.
to sell 20 million in this first year, which is more than the Switch sold. And it wasn't actually that hard after the initial few months to get a Switch, so I think we are okay.
got one on the
I think
third
we're
week.
right as rain. Yeah, I think with how many, like, if the numbers we've heard are correct, there are an insane amount of them produced, and I just can't imagine it'll be a problem.
Yeah, I could see it being a problem, but and I hope they have a system where you can buy it directly from Nintendo, because I do think that's been proven to be the best way to buy these kind of pieces of hardware. Steam did it, PlayStation's done it, and I think both of those worked well. Like the PlayStation Direct sale with the special edition PS5s, I didn't hear anyone go, "Oh, all the scalpers bought them and put them on eBay."
No,
It was,
yeah, it worked.
You bought one.
Okay, another question from Alopius, who wrote in and said, what are your plans for your OG Switch?
I'm probably going to give mine to Henry and try and get him into actual video games. He plays Mario Kart Tour every single day, and I've been trying to get him to play
Yeah, let's
proper
play
Mario
8.
Kart.
That's a good one.
I've tried so many times. He can't figure out the coordination between the stick and the buttons, so I need to start on something simple. I tried It Takes Two with him, but he didn't like the story. He thought that the characters were too British, and I was like, yeah, they kind of are fake British. It's annoying. So like, I'm trying.
so
I'm really
ridiculous.
trying with him.
You British people. Well, we'll have to work on. Maybe that's a topic for a Flip Screen Games podcast. We'll try to like come up with like the best. I did an article about this like years ago. I'll forget what was on the list, but I wrote an article about this of like these are like games to pitch your the non-gamer in your life on video games, right?
He just loves playing stuff on his phone and his iPad. Like he plays Mario Kart and Among Us. Those are the only two games, and I'm like, seriously?
All right, we'll work on this. We'll work on this. This is a goal for 2025 now for the channel. We're gonna figure this out. I think that's a good goal. Yeah, I think I'm in maybe a similar boat. We'll see, because I have two. Like I have my OLED and my launch unit. I'll probably try to sell the base one, even if it's for like
No. Hack the fuck out of that. Just shove a paper clip in.
That's an idea.
You've got one of the models that you can hack. Like
Yeah, that's
they
an
are
idea.
well sought after.
And I was thinking the same thing. Where so my my best friend has a son who I'm like the fun uncle, right? And he's like just too young to play video games. By the time the Switch 2's out, he will be like right in that prime age. So I'm thinking I'll probably give him my Switch as like I'll load it up with some games and hand it over to him as like a passing the torch moment, and see if I can get him into games, which would be really fun. He's like just getting into Pokemon. He likes Mario because he saw the movie. So it's like oh my God, his dad sent me a video last night of him. He has a model Master Sword that had been like hidden away, and his son found it and was like swinging it around. He's like, it's a Master Sword. And I was like, all right, we're right there, baby. We're right there. So I think that's probably my plan, is to try and indoctrinate the next generation here. Okay, let's get into the big questions to wrap this one out. Both Alopius and Chewy wrote in and said, when do you think Switch 2 will be released? And then Andy wrote in and said, so let's play Guess the Price. So let's plan our flags. Another prediction here. When do you think Nintendo Switch 2 comes out? How much does it retail for? I'll go first because I got shit last time. I think it's September.
Do we get 2 points? 1 point for date closest without going over, and then one for price?
I was going to
without
just
going
say
over?
month, but if you want to do a specific date, we could do that. You
I
think
think
date?
so. I think I want to do a date, yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, then I need a second. Because I think it retails for no more than $350 is my guess. And are we doing closest without going over?
Dollars? Is that dollars?
Yeah. I
we
think it's
do
between
pounds?
$300 and $350 is my guess.
Can I do pounds?
You can do pounds if you want. Yeah.
I think it's £350.
Okay.
Okay, I will say £351 then, because I
You
think
son
it's
of a
more
bitch.
expensive than £350.
Fucking hate you guys.
I'll say 300. Yeah, to hedge my bets because I don't think it's more than 50. So that way I'm set. If it's more than 50, if it's 50, Max gets it. If it's more than that, it's Steve. Okay.
So 300, 350, and mine's basically more than 350. I think it's 399 or 379 at a push. I
Okay.
don't in the UK. I don't think it's 350.
Yeah, I think that also makes sense. I think 400 is about the most I think you could charge for it. But given the fact that the parts are old, like they're older.
They're not now. No.
No?
The chip that's in this is like designed.
The new one that they designed for
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah.
The last one was all like leftovers, right? It was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it was like,
It
oh,
was,
well,
it was
well, you got the
already
parts bit.
old at launch.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I think this is going to be just that alone is like we loved the Switch, we loved everything the Switch did, and that was like you said, it wasn't designed for this. Is a system that is designed, and it's in a post like handheld world. You
compare it to some of the handhelds we talk about on the Steam Deck podcast. You know, the Steam Deck is like 400, and then it goes up from there. And I think 400, you're in at the competing price as the cheapest Steam Deck. I think that's where they want to be. And you get a lot more tech with it. You get the dock included. You've got the Joy-Cons there with all the new stuff in there. I think 400 is the price that they're aiming for.
I don't know. I just
I'm
don't.
sticking with
Because
350
I think it makes sense for them to sell it at a loss because like they sold the Switch at a profit for 8 years and never cut the price, and like they're sitting on a shitload of money. Like if they sell it at a $50 loss and it makes it a very competitive price point, I think that that's maybe a trade worth making. But
I kind of feel like it's already very competitive. Xbox is putting their games on here anyway. You say like you don't really need to go buy an Xbox if you got this console.
we don't know that. We know that they're going to put some games on Switch. We have no idea how many are going to come.
And regardless, I feel like you want Mario Kart, you want the next Mario, you want the next Zelda. You loved your Switch. You're going to buy one, and to charge you $50 more than the current console, I don't think is out of the question.
No, I
You know,
don't
they
either.
charged more when the OLED came out. They're going to charge more when this one comes out.
Yeah, but again, it's like those are going to get a price cut then. So it's like, why not keep that?
If both of them stick around, you know, they might go, well, we're phasing out the old model. It's just the OLED in this model, or
Yeah.
we're phasing out the OLED model. You can have this model or this model.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would make sense to do it that way. I mean, maybe you probably keep the light around too for a while, but
That might be the only one they keep around because it shares quite a few parts with the normal Switch.
yeah, it's interesting. Okay, I mean we're locked in. We all know what we think about price. We don't have to litigate that anymore. What do we feel about date?
Let me bring up my calendar again.
Do we want to
I'm
just say
saying
like a week, so we don't have to pick
Okay.
a day?
the first week of September?
I was gonna say the second, so that works for me. You're the week of the first. I'm saying the week of the 8th.
Okay.
of September.
Yeah.
So you think it's going to launch on September the 11th?
No, the 12th.
Okay. I don't know if they were gonna
September
do
the
it on
11th plus one.
I don't know. It's like I'm not like obviously September 11th is a day of mourning in this country, but like it's also a product that's launching everywhere in the world, and it would be a
Yeah,
day
that's
later.
true.
It just seems like I don't know. Like, is that controversial? I don't. Maybe, but I don't know. I think the 12th feels more correct to me than the 5th. That's my.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
basing it on, which is not very scientific, but vibes.
Is it a week you want from me here?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
pick a week.
I'm gonna say, and if it's earlier, if I say the earliest date and it's earlier than that, do I win?
Closest without going over is how we're doing it, but I don't know how that
And
works.
you
with
guys,
dates.
so I'm gonna say August.
We want to say point. We'll say how about point go to the person who is the closest in terms of days. So like, no, that doesn't.
No,
work.
because if it launches the last week of August and I pick the first week of September and Max has picked the first week of August, I win because I'm closer to that date.
I'm-
But if
Yeah,
you
which I think is fair though. I think
Yeah.
that is better than you were 3 weeks off, right?
yeah,
I'm gonna say
Okay, but wait, no, hold on. Sorry. What happens if it's like
if it's like July, I win. If I pick a date in August, if it's July, I win.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
And
I-
that's
I'm
why I'm
gonna
trying to figure it
say-
out when it comes to us.
Oh,
But
you
I
guys
guess
fuck.
that makes sense. 'Cause
Week of the 18th
You're right, go ahead.
of August. 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, 22nd. I'm going to say it's 21st or 22nd. But it's that week.
Good.
Okay.
Is my
Perfect.
week.
Just in time for the bank holiday in the UK. Be nice.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm going to be away.
That would
Oh,
be
well.
cool.
Doesn't matter. Whatever, don't care. Not
So
getting
the
on
week of
launch
the
It'll
anyway.
be, it's my mum's birthday. Dad can buy her one for her
Oh.
birthday and then use it. And that, you know, it's
Yeah.
great. It's the classic. Here's a present you didn't really
Yeah.
want.
It's a whisk or something like that, you know.
Yeah, I bought you a Hoover.
Yeah, we ran out of tinfoil, so I bought a load of tinfoil.
Okay, so real quick, I'm just gonna write these down so we have them handy for later in the year. So I said 300. Steve said 351 because he's a
Yeah,
rat
anything
bastard.
higher than 350.
And
yeah.
Max said 350. Okay.
You know, Max, if it's 349, you don't get a point now.
No, no, I'm calling.
No, yeah,
no,
'cause
I'm
it's the
calling
closest
foul on
when
that.
I
If
go
it's
away.
$349.99, that counts. That's a marketing ploy, and you know it. I'm not screwing Max out of
If
that point.
Pete's is 299, no one gets a point.
I'm fine if none of us get points, but I'm not giving you a point when he's 1 penny off. That's nonsense. That is, we're following the spirit of the law, not the letter of the law on that one. Okay.
I'm going to be real. I cannot work this out. I don't want you to explain it to me. I just trust that when it comes to it, you'll be
Okay.
honest. Because
So
I
the
have
TV
not
show-
got a clue.
The TV show The Price is Right.
Yeah.
They guess the price.
I
of
said
the
don't
items.
explain it to me. I said don't explain it to me. And
I'm
I don't want
explaining it to the
me.
audience.
Fine.
So they guess the price of the items. And if the price, you might say the item's £200. The item might be £202. It's the closest without going over the price. So if the price is like £195, if someone guessed £1, they get the price. So the closest without going over the price.
Okay.
So there you go. All right, and Max, you said it was what, the second week of August?
22nd
Okay.
to the the week of the August 22nd.
I got you.
Whenever
The week of the 18th, I think.
week of the 18th. Thank you.
There we go. All right, gang. So that wraps it up. We're here. We're living in a post Nintendo Switch 2 announcement world. So, we got a lot to look forward to. Hopefully there'll be, some leaks and rumors to tide us over between now and April, but if not, we got plenty to speculate about wildly. So I'm very much looking forward to the rest of 2025 here on Nintendo Noise. What do you got, Max? You got something before we leave?
I was just going to say, you put here dollars. I specifically said pounds.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't have a pound key because I live in America.
Fine.
I'm not
Stevie,
gonna find one.
Are we all pounds?
I think it's $400 and £400. So I'm going to go with dollars. I don't think it matters. I think they have
Fine.
price.
All
parity.
right, fine.
We'll
This is
remember
gonna
though,
get
Max.
confusing.
You're good. You're good. All right, gang. So thanks again for joining us here on the first Nintendo Noise of 2025. Remember, if you want to write in with your thoughts on Nintendo Switch 2, and you didn't for this week, we got a lot of episodes between now and April, so hit me with them for next week, all right? And of course, keep up with us all the ways that you can. Head over to flipscreen.games. That's the website. You'll find our sister shows, the Steam Deck podcast, the Flipscreen Games podcast. You'll find all the ways that you can get involved, show your support, or write into the show just like everybody did for this week's episode. However you choose to get involved, thanks for being here. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Nintendo Noise.